Faking a crisis to get what you want. It can seem like a clever little shortcut, right? But what if I told you the real victim of that lie isn't the person you tricked? Today, we're going to unpack the surprisingly high psychological price of deception. And trust me, it is not what you think.
So picture this. You've had a long day, you're finally relaxing, and then there's a frantic knock on your door. It's your neighbor, and they look totally panicked. They need your help right now.
They tell you their partner took a fall while they were trying to move a sofa. So of course you don't even think twice. You jump up, you rush right over, already picturing a scene of crisis, ready to be that good neighbor.
But the second you step inside their place, something just feels off. The story was about a sofa, right? But the person who supposedly fell is laid out almost dramatically in the middle of a completely open floor. It doesn't add up.
And that's when you start replaying it in your head. That frantic request for help, it felt more like they were giving you an order, and there wasn't any real panic in their eyes. You suddenly realize you haven't stumbled into a medical emergency, you've been cast in their personal play about moving furniture.
Now what just happened there isn't just a simple lie. Psychologists actually have some pretty specific names for these kinds of behaviors, and it all boils down to one thing. What was the real reason behind the act?
Okay, so first up, you've got something called malingering. This is when someone fakes being sick or hurt for a very clear, tangible prize. Think about faking a back injury to get an insurance payout, or pretending to be sick to get a day off work. The goal is something you can hold, something external.
Then there's a term you've probably heard a lot lately, weaponized incompetence. Oh yeah, this is a total power move. It's that person who says, oh, I just don't know how to work the dishwasher, or the coworker who is just so bad with technology, forcing you to do their work for them.
And finally, there's feigned helplessness. Now this one's a little different, because the motivation is all internal. This isn't about getting money or dodging chores. It's about creating a little drama to get an emotional reward, your attention, your sympathy, basically to make sure you're focused on them.
So here's the bottom line. These tricks can all look pretty similar from the outside, but what's driving them is completely different. You always have to ask, are they after something from my wallet? Are they trying to get out of doing something, or are they just after my attention?
But look, this kind of behavior can go way beyond just getting a neighbor to move a couch. It can escalate into something much more serious, even dangerous. It can become a tool for some serious psychological manipulation.
In some really extreme cases, especially with narcissistic personalities, faking an emergency is their go-to move for control. They'll use it to pull you away from your friends, to wreck your plans, and to make sure their needs are always the most urgent thing in your life. It's all about control.
And at its most extreme, this behavior can be a sign of something called factitious disorder. Now, this is a really serious mental health condition where the person isn't faking it for an obvious reward, like money. The goal is simply to be the sick person. That's the reward itself. You might see people with this disorder do some pretty extreme things. Tampering with their own lab tests, injecting themselves with things to get sick, constantly arguing with doctors. And that's the key thing that separates it from malingering. There's no obvious external prize. It's all driven by a deep, deep psychological need to be seen as a patient. So we usually focus on the person who got tricked, right? The person who rushed over to help, only to feel like a total fool. But what if we've been looking at this all wrong? What's the hidden price for the person telling the lie? Well, the answer is going to surprise you. A really fascinating study, brand new from September 2023, puts a really surprising and kind of ironic twist on that old saying, honesty is the best policy. Researchers found this direct, measurable connection. The data is clear. The more often someone lies, the more intensely they feel socially isolated and lonely. It's not just a hunch. It is a clear, proven pattern. But why? Why does lying make you feel alone? Well, it's because of this brilliant psychological quirk called deceiver's distrust. Basically, when you lie to other people, your brain starts to assume that everybody else is lying to you too. You start projecting your own untrustworthy behavior onto everyone around you. And this just perfectly shows how it works. Lying literally eats away at your own ability to trust other people. And think about it. If you can't trust anyone, how can you ever form a real connection? That loss of trust is a one-way ticket to feeling completely and utterly alone. It's this tragic, self-inflicted cycle. The act of lying poisons the liar's own well. It creates this profound loneliness. And here's the kicker. It happens even if nobody ever finds out about the lie. And this slow poisoning of trust, it doesn't just hurt the person telling the lies.
Oh no, it has this corrosive ripple effect on all of us, on the very social fabric we all rely on to survive.
You know the ancient story of the boy who cried wolf, right? Well, it's way more than just a kid's story. This quote from way back in the 18th century is basically a warning about the long-term societal cost of constantly sounding false alarms. And today, we actually have a clinical name for it: alarm fatigue. It's what happens when we're bombarded with constant false alarms from our phones, in hospitals, or, yeah, from our neighbors. We get so used to it that our response gets slower, or we stop responding at all, right when a real emergency finally hits. And that's the real cost, isn't it? Every fake emergency, every staged fall, every little manipulated crisis, it drains this collective reservoir of trust that we all share. It makes every single one of us just a little more skeptical, a little more cynical, and a little less likely to answer the next call for help.
So that leaves us with one last thing to think about. We're always told that honesty is for the benefit of the person hearing the truth. But after everything we've looked at, it really seems like the person who benefits the most from living an honest life might just be the one telling it.